Hey, folks.
Back here for take two of the regular Joe show of the Grand Strand.
Yes.
Um, I see you have a little something you want to talk about your good friend Val
My
Guest.
good friend Val
Your
Guest.
good
Yeah.
friend.
Now, some of you,
I got it.
some of you lucky folks, got this big old postcard in the mail from. I'm going to say it. In theory, it's from Val Guest, but it really wasn't because he didn't pay for it. He probably didn't even read it.
It says right on the stamp who's paid for.
Yeah, I know. It was paid for by the South Carolina House Republican Caucus, which technically does not exist because it's not registered with the Secretary of State. And it's, according to the postage, it's a nonprofit organization, which is also technically not correct because it's not registered with the IRS either. But getting too picky here. Anyway, Val is talking about South Carolina GOP launches historic tax cut proposal. Republicans' historic tax cut plan attempts to give South Carolina the competitive edge. There's some stuff from U.S. News and World Report. What he's talking about is that proposed tax reduction that was withdrawn about 2 hours after it was put on the table because even the hoi polloi looked through that and said, that's going to raise my taxes, dude, which is exactly what it was going to do for most of the people. And nor did it recognize that 44% of the population doesn't pay state income taxes to begin with. So if you're going to modify it in any way, presumably you would have to somehow include them in the payment process. So anyway, so Val goes out with this whole list of tax cut headlines, all of which were out of date, and he's looking for an attaboy. So let's give him one. Good. Okay.
We'll give him the golf clap.
And I'm sticking with Val Guest. He was on with Liz Callaway.
Yeah, and he did not.
May 6th it was.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of pregnant pauses in the conversation, and Liz was trying to get him to talk.
Right, and I equated it to Mr. Crandon, who wrote Swanee River? Humana, Ed Norton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, but one of the things that Val Guest did talk about at some length was his, I'll say, moral opposition to gambling.
That and brown liquors never do.
This is real. He said this it's recorded, and it says moral objections, and it leads people into spending money they shouldn't spend, and addictions and all that sort of stuff. All of which is true. But
he needs to also look at swing clubs in Myrtle Beach.
Well, but yes. Not to mention the fact that his puppet masters very much want casinos here.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on what he has to say in the future, because he's on record as saying he's opposed to it for moral reasons. And I can tell you that the people he reports to, which is not the people who elected him, by the way, they are very much in favor of casinos. So, and casinos may very well be a topic if the governor calls the legislature back in session for a special session sometime between now and next January.
And I also think, to be honest with you, the state really needs to get into the 21st century.
Yeah, I get it, but you lost me with that one, frankly.
Have you read a copy of the state constitution?
Last night.
you can't sue a doctor if you arrive at a hospital via horse and carriage. It's still in there. Some of the stuff that's in there from still the 1800s. Yes,
but this isn't a horse and carriage, but this is still literally true. The state education board.
Right.
Each school district has their own
board, right?
But there is a state level one that's call it advisory, maybe.
Yeah, It's not really a board; it's an advisory committee.
And but anyway, they banned recently 10 books, all of which had to do with or sexual orientation or sexual behavior, et cetera, which the people didn't feel belonged in the schools.
Okay.
You can agree with that or not, but that's fine. But the interesting thing that I did not know until I saw that was that librarians and schools cannot be sued for having pornographic stuff in their within their walls, and yet if some individual had that same stuff within his house and was showing it to underage kids or underage kids,
The kids, period.
then that person could be arrested. So April Cromer was going to, who was a state representative, was I think she ran out of time, was going to put in a proposed bill that would say if these things are banned, they're banned from schools and from libraries, folks. So anyway, yeah, I'm just
You know, let's remember the movie Blue Lagoon with
Yeah.
Brooke Shields.
yeah,
Okay.
it's terrible.
Right, it was terrible. Do you know it couldn't be shown in the state of South Carolina? They didn't show it.
Too boring.
No. Think about the movie.
No, there's a little bit of skin on
That's why it wasn't shown.
it.
But meanwhile, this is what I don't get, okay? They want to take the moral high ground about the gambling, this and that. If you go out in Myrtle Beach and you look at some of these people who live here and some of their wives, okay, they get dressed this, they get dressed to that, but they get sloshed. They get hammered.
Yes,
I mean,
yes. And speaking of that, there was a recent lawsuit filed against SPP, Select Bank Blow and Mills Inlet and Acme Bar and Grill,
yeah.
which technically may be Horry County, but SPP,
Suck Bang Blow is Horry County.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, for over serving
Yeah.
somebody who subsequently had an accident, DUI.
You know, when I was the president of the Italian club, we had to take the safe serve courses,
Yes.
okay, and how to tell somebody if they're, you know, if they're drunk or if they're under the influence or if they're intoxicated. Why can't these people just abide by that? If the state puts it in place, why can't these people, these bartenders and these businesses abide by that?
Well, they can. And I'm not, well, okay, but I'm not saying that. So the lawsuit was filed.
Right.
I don't know.
Listen, I can tell you, I've been in some restaurants in the Grand Strand, okay, from Barefoot Landing, Broadway at the beach, all the way down to Napoleon's Island. Some of these people I've seen have not been served any more alcohol, but they were.
I'm sure that's true.
I mean,
but there's also a difference. Not that I'm justifying one versus the other. There is a difference between over-serving somebody who takes a Uber,
correct,
home,
correct.
Versus someone who gets in behind their Suburban. And so, anyway, I say that because there was a law passed by both the South and the Senate that had to do with liquor liability
Yep.
and a touch about some other kinds of liability, but not nearly what it should have addressed. And I'm not as well versed on that as I should be, but I will be by the next episode.
And you know what they also need to do, to be honest with you, they passed that. They also need now to hold accountable. Okay, they want to hold the businesses accountable. They need to hold accountable these kids who go to CCU or in Georgetown Tech with the fake IDs and go in and get served.
Okay.
They also need now to be held accountable.
Well, I don't know how Real ID comes into that. Now that you raised that issue,
I know some students who go to CCU, they're under 21, and they go to bars and they get served, and they don't realize what the consequences could be if they ever get caught.
Mm-hmm. Some kind of idiots that torch Teslas.
I thought they catch on fire by themselves.
No, that was Michael Jackson and the Pepsi commercial.
Oh, Jesus.
Just dated myself with that one.
Listen.
Another little local tidbit is demolition begins on Liberty Steel site in Georgetown, and that has pluses and minuses in a sense because despite having been sold over the years to various owners, it just never made it.
No, it never did. And it's sad because that and the paper plant employed a lot of people.
Yes.
In Georgetown County.
Yeah. And the paper plant shut at the beginning of the year, wasn't it? I think.
Ending of last, beginning of this, yeah.
Yeah. And that put out a lot of people out of work. Now, the steel mill didn't put a lot of people out of work, at least not this go around,
No.
because they've been laying off
Left and right. Yeah.
for years.
Yeah.
And anyway, they're tearing it down. And, to be perfectly candid, it's an ugly eyesore.
And from what I understand now, there is Mungo, Doctor Who, Horton, and Lennar are trying to buy that property.
The steel mill?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed that, only because that's right on the water, isn't it?
Not quite right on the water. It's it's as you go over the bridge on 17 to get out of Conway. It's out of Georgetown itself. It's on the left-hand side. The paper plant is on the water, yes, but from what I hear, there are already three builders interested in that property.
Could be. Anyway, it was sort of on life support, and
They pulled the plug.
Yeah, they did.
They had to.
Yes, they did. And speaking of things on the water, have you heard about Ram Reddy?
Who?
Ram Reddy.
No.
Ram Reddy is a gentleman that lives down in Isle of Palms, and he has a I haven't been there, but I've seen pictures. He has a very nice house right on the water.
Okay.
And he built call it a containing wall, a seawall, to prevent erosion
yeah,
of his property.
Sure.
Well, he'd been sued over that. This lawsuit started in 2023.
Why is he being sued over that?
Because supposedly they're not allowed to put up retaining walls. Now, I say supposedly because that's what the bureaucracy says.
Yeah.
I also know that there have been lawsuits in other places like de Bordeaux or Hilton Head, where the same kind of situation exists.
Or in Prince George, that they have off of 17. There's Prince George, the development, the little.
I've never been in there, but yeah.
My wife and I looked in there, but the HOA it is this thick to do anything in there.
Well, the bottom line is that if you don't have the containing wall,
you don't have that wall. Your house is going to be washed away
eventually. Yeah, sort of like Malibu, I guess. But so anyway, he did put up
to save his house, save his property.
Well, he's being sued, saying he didn't have the right to do it, and the local constabulary and whatever officials told him not to do it.
He can't ask for forgiveness, unlike the large builders do. He's going to have to be told to take it down.
Well, he's been told, and that's why he's in court.
Yeah.
But this is to me the absolutely fascinating thing is he is arguing his own case, no attorneys. And he's on video. I mean, not the whole thing, but some of the reporters would come in taking pictures of it, and so you see some of this on the news channels and whatever. And interesting that he's arguing his own case, and it to me it'd be real interesting to see what happens.
Listen, I know if it comes down to a wall saving my home or the ocean sweeping it out to sea, I'm going with the wall.
Well, okay, now.
But he's probably in an HOA.
I don't know, but it's not. It's the Coastal Conservation League that's suing.
Boy.
Anyway, he also started Doja Sea.
That's okay.
And what caused him to start Doja Sea was this constant, from his perspective, bureaucratic onslaught of all these rules and regulations, and it's just like enough is enough.
Some of these HOAs and some of these conservation leagues, they think they're, the highest power in the land or in the world.
Well, they're in court in Colombia, actually. That surprised me a little bit. I thought it would be more local, but it's in Colombia. And
so he went to this.
No, I don't know. He went to. I mean, that's.
So this went straight to probably the state courthouse.
Yeah, but it's not. It's first level. I mean,
okay, so it's not.
It's not appeals or Supreme.
Okay.
No. But he is arguing his own case, and
he's probably going to win. Hopefully.
I don't know. But he's got the entire bureaucracy against him. because he's bucking the bureaucracy trend, and also
Yeah.
because the guy's fairly wealthy, and he's started Doja C, which is
Now,
not going to be quite like Elon's situation,
yeah,
because Elon had the president on his side.
side. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
this guy doesn't have.
It's him against the world. When
Well,
you stop and think about
it's
it.
him again providing money to encourage people to challenge the rhinos that are in there causing all the bureaucratic
Listen,
nonsense to begin with.
I had a problem when I was living in Lexington. My backyard used to flood. Rains like we had the past couple of days, I'd be ankle to knee deep in water in my backyard. And people are saying to me, "Oh, if you put the pool in, you put the pool in." Ryan Holmes is saying it to me. Um, uh, MJS is saying it to me. Okay, the HOA and the landscapers were saying it to me. I found an attorney. They says, "Well, you're never going to find an attorney to take it because you can't sue this." I said, "Yeah, I'll find an attorney." I found one in Charleston. His name was Ben Trawick. He took the case. It took 2 years, and I got $175,000 because they were at fault. They never leveled my land right. They never put the proper drainage in. Okay, there was a. It's a long story because I lived in the city of Lexington. The property behind me, which was vacant, was the county of Lexington, and they wanted to blame that property. Well, they let it overgrow and everything, and the water never came onto my property anymore, but they had to cut it down. Make a long story short, they were found at fault that they never put the proper drainage in, it was never leveled right, and that you should have checked the foundation of the home after the first rainstorm after it was put up. I had water completely underneath my house.
No HOA?
We had an HOA.
Oh, you did?
I had a foot of water under my house in the crawl space. And I couldn't figure out why my hardwood floors were starting to curl up. So, good luck. I wish this man well.
Well, he's fighting a good fight, and we'll
Yeah.
see what happens. But his plan.
Well, you would think if he's got the money, he would hire an attorney, but I guess he feels better putting the case himself because he knows, I guess, what he wants or what he wants to do.
I guess, but I mean, if he's apparently a very successful business person, so I'm saying,
That's a plus in his corner.
yeah, we'll see what happens. But his plan with Doja C, he knows he can't go in there like with the president's
Yeah.
approval and change all the rules or fire all the people.
Right.
But what he can do is fund campaigns by challengers to the existing rhino
Yep.
cabal
Mhm.
that for people who could not run absent somebody else's funding it because they don't have the money.
No.
Because take it from me, folks, running for office is not cheap.
No.
It's
not.
But another subject that only came, this is J.P. Miller.
That video surfaced the other day, last week. The wheelchair guy go right into the swimming pool.
Well, yes, there's that. Some might say he wasn't directly involved with that, but I'm not. I don't know. I wasn't there, but I do know that a guy named Mark Tinsley, an attorney, who has the reputation of being a pit bull, and that's a plus, by the way.
Yes.
Has now taken the side of he's supporting the Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2s who have accused J.P. Miller of inappropriate behavior. Mark Tinsley is also the attorney who is representing Spivey's sister, who has had the whole situation from 2023 reopened, that shooting up in Little River, I believe it was. So Spivey being involved is, I don't know the guy, but I've heard from various people who should know that he's a very effective attorney. So if he's on the against J.P. Miller's side, if I were J.P. Miller, I'd start to worry.
Yeah, but again, down here it's who you know, not what you know.
That works on both sides of the equation.
I know, but sometimes the short side always wins.
We'll see.
I know.
But as I said, I don't know the guy, but he's got quite a reputation for being a pit bull and and
That's what you need.
and the causes that he goes after. And by the way, he's not from Horry County.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a plus. Because most of the attorneys from Horry County
Won't
part of the
touch it.
cabal. They won't touch it. So that should be.
That's going to be interesting.
That's going to be
That's gonna
interesting
be
to see
interesting.
what happens there. And as long as we're talking about political stuff, I'll take a shot at some guy that should have departed a long time ago, and that's not Luke Rankin, by the way, although
No.
that applies. I'm talking about James Clyburn, the Democrat.
I mean, listen, I said it the last time, I said it again. The guy looks good for 83 physically, but mentally, he's not.
Well, if he's the one that is responsible for Joe Biden winning the primary
In South Carolina.
Which is what caused Joe Biden to win. Well, he won the primary here, but he won nationwide,
Right.
and that we all know what a disaster that was.
No.
Clyburn's responsible for it.
Wasn't a disaster. It's a fiasco.
Oh. I'm not being an ageist. I mean, at 83, he could be great. I mean, look at 88, the prior Pope. I mean,
my father, 91. He's going to Italy the ending of June by himself again.
Good Lord. I'm just.
But in the same breath, my father says, you and Elisa are going to come, right?
Anyway.
He's got to go. Jim, enjoy retirement.
Jim, all right, just put yourself out of our misery, would you please? Thank you. And we were talking about the Spivey situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that has to do with Horry County Police.
Yep.
Now, Myrtle Beach Police are an entirely separate conversation, and there's more to come out about that.
Yeah.
When the city finally admits or acknowledges or releases the truth about what actually happened.
Yeah.
I would bet that their police chief is going to be history soon. But anyway, there are more scandals now in the Horry County Police Department. Some having nothing to do with the Spivey situation. But William Bailey, who I referenced earlier with respect to Route 31 and the 22 extension situation,
right?
He has put a bill into the House. Now, it's going to have to wait until January.
Yeah.
Because the session's over with.
Unless they call a special session, but.
Yeah, and they probably won't do it for this. No. So he's put in a bill to remove the police powers, if you will, all the police powers from Horry County Police, just get rid of it altogether, move it over to the sheriff. Now, the sheriff is an elected official and does not technically report to the county. I don't know whether the county pays him, but he doesn't.
Who does he report to?
I think he reports to the governor.
But he, like in New York City, they have a police commissioner.
Well, that reports to the mayor.
Okay. So I think he may report to some hierarchy. I don't know.
I think all the sheriffs report to the governor.
The governor McMaster.
Could be wrong, but he does not report to the county. The police chief for the county does report to the county council.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. I couldn't.
Okay. And anyway, David Hux had a fascinating article in his MyrtleBeachSC.com yesterday about the Horry County Police Department, some touching on the scandals, but also touching on the fact that the price tag for that, call it extra police force. I'll just use that word. I don't know that it's necessarily accurate. About $57 million a year.
That's not chump change.
No, it's not. In fact, it's almost
money.
as much as the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce gets every year from the TDF. But we'll see what happens with that. But there's one scandal after another, and there's some people pushing to remove that. Now, Dennis DiSabato, who is a county council person, says, no, that's not a good idea. There's no reason to do that, yada, yada, yada. We'll see what happens. I don't know, but
I still can't figure out how he is as Yankee as they come, and how he got on county council is beyond my belief.
Don't know. And he's in Carolina Forest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Carolina Forest has a lot of issues. Well, I mean, every area does, but they've got a real massive growth situation, just like down in the Burgess area.
Yeah.
There's too much too much being built. But anyway, I mean, that's, we'll see what happens with the Horry County
Yeah,
Police
yeah,
Department.
yeah.
I have no personal knowledge of anything awry.
I mean, I feel
But
I feel bad for the for some of these police officers. They're going to lose their jobs maybe, but not for nothing. They got to do something's got to get done.
well, but I'm not saying that any proposal says fire them all, because I'm sure that you would have to transfer X percent over to the county, because the county has their number of their staff, and the Horry County Police have their staff, and I know they assist each other sometimes. But if you're gonna push it all over to one entity, I'm sure that
You
a lot
can't
of
do
people,
half. You got to do all.
you gotta move some of the people over anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, folks, that sort of fills out the second half hour of this one. There's a lot to go over, and there's more to come.
And the other thing you got to worry about too, getting back to the Horry County Police Department, the department, they do their job. Some of these officers really do their job well, but some of them, I just see them sitting in cars doing nothing.
They're checking on traffic. I don't know what they're doing. I will say this. South Carolina, yes, but this area in particular in South Carolina has a really high incidence of DUI.
Yeah.
And
They do.
part of the problem is the fact that people are impaired, but part of the problem is also that they don't enforce the rules. I mean, a red light
they
means
don't stop. Correct.
A yellow light means slow down because you're going to have to stop. It doesn't mean speed up so I can beat the red. And they're not enforcing.
And they just, if you leave 8 feet of the car in front of you, they still squeeze in between that.
They do, and they change lanes without turning signals. They make turns without turning signals. I know the police departments and the sheriff's they have their hands full with everything else that's going on.
They do.
I understand that.
They do.
But a lot of the accidents around here are just sort of self-imposed, having nothing to do with liquor, just awful drivers who just ignore the rules.
And these half squat trucks that the governor supposedly outlawed or whatever, they're still driving around.
Some, but not nearly as many. So anyway, folks, thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
Have a good week.
Take care.